For only the second time in its 10-year history, the Brazilian Grand Prix moved from Interlagos to the tough and demanding 3.1-mile circuit at the Rio Autodrome. Pole position, it's Nelson Piquet, the new hero of Brazil. Then in his Saudi Leyland Williams on the right, it's Reutemann himself, 3 times winner at Brazil. World champion Alan Jones on the left, his third fastest. It's a superb start for Carlos Reutemann and for Riccardo Patrese and Alan Jones, and they've all got ahead of the pole pace man Nelson Piquet, who is in 4th position, number 5, as they go into the first corner. The swinging right-hander, and this is an anti-clockwise course, and it's Reutemann leading Patrese, and number 21 Chico Serra, the Brazilian, has already spun out of the race, and now they'll have to get his car off the circuit. Reutemann leading on lap 1, the Argentine driver in his 131st Grand Prix, and look again at the start, a superb start by Reutemann. Patrese coming up on the right, Jones on the left, and Piquet drops back, and there is the Alfa Romeo in the background as we rejoin the race to see Reutemann leading Patrese, and Alan Jones has closed right up on the Italian, and it was Riccardo Patrese, don't forget, who led at Long Beach, the last Grand Prix, until about 30 laps into it, when his engine had trouble with the fuel feed and he had to drop out of the race. So, Reutemann in the Saudi Leyland Williams car, leading Patrese in the orange and white arrows, followed immediately by Alan Jones, the reigning world champion, in the white Saudi Leyland team car with his teammate Carlos Reutemann accelerating away, and you can see how bad the conditions are here at Rio, because the great rooster tails of spray coming up from the big rear tires of the cars. Alan Jones moves out to his left to avoid that spray and get a clear view of the circuit, and Alan Jones is through ahead of Patrese. Alan Jones is up into 2nd place, so again, and we've seen it so many times recently in Grand Prix, it is the Williams cars 1st and 2nd. There's Jones 2nd ahead of Riccardo Patrese. And that is Patrick Tambay, the Frenchman who finished in 6th place at Long Beach. He spun off and he's driving back onto the circuit as we rejoin, and we see again this oh so familiar sight. Reutemann, Jones, and behind them in 3rd position Riccardo Patrese, and these 3 are already, even in this early stage of the race, pulling away from the battle behind them for 4th position. And who's that? That is Villeneuve. That's Gilles Villeneuve doing in the Brazilian Grand Prix what you will recall Jacques Laffite, the Frenchman, did just a couple of weeks ago or so at Long Beach. Villeneuve now into the pits, obviously to have a new nose section fitted. There is the battle for 5th and 6th position. John Watson in 5th place now in the red and white Marlboro car, followed by, there goes Rosberg, and behind Rosberg it's one of the 2 Talbot Matra cars, the blue and white car. Watson, Rosberg, and it's Jean-Pierre Jarier behind him, and behind Jarier is Marc Soura. Now this is interesting. Marc Soura went to the ATS Formula 1 team last year, crashed very badly at South Africa, broke both his legs, came back into racing at the tail end of last season in the ATS, and as Jarier, Jumper Jarier, the Frenchman, challenges and passes Keke Rosberg and moves up into 5th position in the process, Soura closes up on Rosberg. The Ensign was certainly in last season not the fastest by a long chalk of the Formula 1 Grand Prix cars, and now Soura is challenging Rosberg, and he's going to go through, is he? That's where Jarier went through. No, Rosberg closes the door very firmly in the Swiss driver's face, and Bruno Giacomelli, young Bruno Giacomelli, the Italian, comes into the pits in the V12 Alfa Romeo, out of the running now, and he was, you will remember, in 5th place earlier on. There is Pironi, there is Prost, Alain Prost, The young Frenchman closing up on the turbocharged Ferrari of Didier Pironi, the Frenchman. And both of them now ahead of Keke Rosberg. Prost is going to punch his way through, and he does it, and Pironi's lost it. Pironi's lost it and harpoons Prost. And there's a perfect indication of how effective the catch fencing is on today's Grand Prix circuits, because both drivers look to me, yes, they're both getting out of the cars. Watson then in 5th position, Jarier and Sura, there's Sura, the third of these 3 cars, in 7th position. And in 8th position, Jacques Lafitte, the second French driver in the Talbot Matra V12. But now, John Watson is under pressure from Jarier. And this is certainly not a day for Bruno Giacomelli, number 23, the 28-year-old ex-European Formula 2 champion. Back again to see Watson and Sura. Sura has got ahead of Jarier. Marc Sura, that's Watson, and look at the next car. It's Marc Sura who has gone up a place. So Sura is now in 6th position, the second of these 2 cars. The blue and white cars behind him are in 7th and 8th places. Jarier, there's Jarier, and here is Watson, who is in 5th position. This is a magnificent race for Marc Sura. He's making his reputation here at Brazil today, and just watch the way he's harassing John Watson. And now Jarier, because Watson went a little wide on the corner, as did Sura, Jarier was able to take a tighter line, and the 3 cars, 5th, 6th and 7th, are virtually together, and Jacques Lafitte is starting to close up on Jarier. This is terrific stuff. Watson will have to watch it as he comes up to Eddie Cheever as they go down the long 3/4 of a mile straight. This is 5th gear, over 160 miles an hour. Just think about that. And Watson loses it. That's it. The pressure's got to him. He's kept the car going. Look, he's motoring immediately. John Watson, who was pressured and lost it, has gone straight down from 5th position to 8th position. Look at this. This is Marc Sura, the second of these 2 cars. Marc Sura has now closed right up with Elio De Angelis, who is in 4th position. So, Sura, having fought his way up from 6th to 5th when he went past the spinning John Watson, he's now right in the spray of the 4th place man, Elio De Angelis, number 11 in the Lotus 81. And that's Piquet coasting. Looks as though his race is run, coasting, but no, he was just coasting and dropped the clutch to get the engine going again through the rear wheels, and Piquet gets away again. That's Sura, and Sura's got ahead of De Angelis. Marc Sura has got up into 4th position. Great stuff. We missed it, but he's got past De Angelis, and De Angelis is still on the circuit, but somehow or other he has got ahead of Elio De Angelis and is in, as far as my memory can recall, the highest position he has ever been in a Grand Prix, and there he is, number 14, Marc Sura, 4th place. Great drive. Right in the last stages of the race, Carlos Reutemann still holding his lead over Alan Jones, and Alan Jones must, I would imagine, be closing up on Carlos Reutemann just to say, in effect, look, my friend, I am less than 10 seconds behind you. Now is your chance to move over and let me, according to the rules of our contract, the requirements of our contracts, move over and let me, Alan Jones, take the lead. There's Reutemann on almost home now, almost within sight as he comes down the long straight. And there's the checkered flag. Carlos Reutemann wins the second Grand Prix for him, and Alan Jones finishes second. Carlos Reutemann out of the car. Has he taken first place in spite of his contract, or because he didn't receive the signal? And there they are, and it's significant that Alan Jones is not on the podium. Patrese is shaking the champagne because Reutemann, in deference to his Arab sponsors, does not touch alcohol. And so, a win at Brazil again for the Williams team and for Carlos Reutemann.